So if you really want to see, you should come over to this side. And the idea is that we all get to be more of a community, and I get to hear you better if you ask a question, et cetera, et cetera. So join us on this side, and we want this to be engaging, and one of the best ways to be engaging is if you would ask questions. So feel free to be thinking of questions to ask at any time. We'll try and answer questions as we go. But first, I think it'd be good if we prayed. So Matt, I'm gonna make you pray. All right.
Lord, thank you for this time that we get to come together and we get to present what our team discovered on our trip to Colombia and how you're using the missionaries there to spread your gospel, to spread your kingdom, Lord. I just pray that you bless this evening and that it's eye-opening and it gets to our hearts and helps us see how much the rest of the world needs you as well, Lord. In your name, amen.
And so, Derek, we are recording, right? Good. And so we are recording this so that my family members and other people can come back and see the pictures as well. So those who couldn't be here could still kind of be a part of and learn what we did. And so before we even get into pictures, I wanted to explain this little diagram for you real quick. This is the 6 steps to missions that the International Mission Board, Southern Baptist Convention, uses. And so you can see you enter into a country, you do evangelism, you do discipleship, you get healthy churches planted, you develop leaders, and you get to a certain point where the nationals there are doing the work. They're doing the ministry. And then you exit. And so we've heard of how Rolling Hills has gone to Senegal before. And Senegal is going to look different. The pictures you're about to see are not Senegal. And so Senegal, they are in the stage of evangelism more. And you're going to see more of something in the healthy church formation. That's what their kind of healthy church formation and leadership development is kind of the stage in which Colombia is. And so that'll be one thing you'll see that's different. But another thing you're going to see that's different is Senegal is rural. It's out in the country. And Colombia, Bogota, is in the city. So you got 2 different dynamics going on here. But both good places and good things. So let's get into it. This is us training before we went. This is some people from church here. And, of course, the people on the team. Eating some yummy Colombian food before we go. And we also did a little Spanish immersion kind of culture shock training because we wanted people to know that there's going to be some culture shock, and how do you prepare for that culture shock before you go? And so we were blessed by the people who decided to come and help train us. They immersed us in Spanish, yummy food. This is us in Chicago just before we go on Wednesday, the day of our trip. And then this is us arrived. And so, Matt, would you tell us about who the people are in this picture?
So if you'll see the top left there, that's Mackenzie. Her role, she was a journeyman in the IMB. It's a position they offered her. She's there for a 2-year stint. I think she was just completing her 2 years when we were there. Her main role, helping out Michael, who is on the bottom right, her main role was to coordinate small teams such as ours and other teams that were coming down to help out the folks. That was kind of her major role there. And then again, Michael on the bottom right, he's the missionary that we support. So he's kind of the lead there for that, working with the college students. I think that's their biggest mission there, is getting college students sort of into the church and kind of moving them to church. I believe, is sort of what his role was in all of that. And I think they had been there for 16 years. I think about 16 years they had been in Colombia already, so.
I wanted to say one other thing about Michael is he focuses on young adult ministry, but there are a couple other long-term missionaries there that focus more on indigenous people, and we weren't really working with them as much. But so Michael focuses more on the young adults, and then of course our team. And then we ate at a yummy restaurant, and you can see in the background the World Cup is on. There's going to be a theme here. Go ahead, Heather. Tell us about this.
So this was our hotel looking out. It was kind of in the middle of a courtyard, and then all around is different restaurants. And so we would meet each morning down there with whoever was either a translator or Mackenzie was coming. And so they also would have nightly parties down there for the World Cup, so it would get very loud late into the night.
And so it was good accommodations. And so this is now Thursday. We've arrived, Wednesday night. Thursday morning, we go out, and Michael takes us to this university. And I don't remember the name of this university, but this is the one university where they have the most contacts and the most ministry going on. And so he asked us to go talk to a random set of college students sitting by themselves and strike up a conversation. And this is the pattern we started doing throughout the rest of our time, is random conversations with random people and trying to make those conversations gospel conversations. And so I would say my attempt was sort of a failure, but it was still a good conversation. It was a nice conversation with people, but we didn't necessarily get it to talking about God. But that was just, in a sense, part of the training, learning how to have conversations that were gospel conversations. So we got to see this university, but of course, university, it looks pretty empty right now because it's summer and their university students are on break. So then at lunchtime, we went to we call it the philosophy group. They call it the philosophy group. And this is a group where people come together and they can openly talk about whatever philosophies they believe in. And Michael Cook puts it on, and so he intentionally tries to have the conversation go a certain direction. And he obviously tries to talk about God and Christianity in this philosophy group as well. But it's in a cafeteria area. It's like a business, bunch of businesses there. It's not a church. And so people who maybe don't feel comfortable in a church can feel comfortable coming and just having conversations. A lot of people in Colombia are not used to having conversations about and being able to ask questions about religious things. Sadly, the expectation among the Catholic church there is that you just listen and follow the rules. You don't ask questions. And so this allows the people just to ask questions. And so Hune there, so there's a guy with the black jacket, that's Luis, he's our translator. The guy next to him with the black hair, that's Hune, and was an agnostic. We were able to share the gospel with him, and Lord willing, the seed's planted, and he'll come to know the Lord as his Savior someday. And so that was a really good, productive conversation with Hune. And then you don't see some other people there in this picture because the table was pretty large, but David was another person we had a conversation with, and we shared the gospel with him as well. Funny, his brother was one of the missionaries there, and he was just coming to visit his brother. And his brother was there at the philosophy group, and he happened to be a Buddhist. And so he was there in the philosophy group, and so he felt comfortable to talk about Buddhism, and so we talked about Christianity. We got him to the point of crying. That wasn't the goal. And I left. I said, "Do you feel cared for?" Like that's my goal. My goal is not to convert you. My goal is to let you know that we love you. We're not here to convert you. We're just here to show you love. And he said yes. I was like, okay, good. So anyways, we were able to have a good long conversation about Buddhism and Christianity, and it was just a productive time. And so this is one of the ministries they do. So this is lunchtime on Thursday. And then you can see we started to walk through the city. And so I'll let Heather talk a little bit about this picture.
So this looks very beautiful and clean. And if I were to have scanned down, you would see this is full of pollution, human feces, all kinds of other things. So they regularly drain these areas. But it was a pretty view from up here, but there's a lot of pollution there.
And if you just, there's also graffiti in a lot of places. Can you tell us about graffiti?
So graffiti there was, almost every building that you would go by would have pictures with graffiti. It wasn't necessarily gangs, it was more just like artistry. And so when they create a new building, what they do is they hire a graffiti artist to graffiti their building, because there is like an unspoken rule that if your graffiti is not as pretty as the graffiti that's on the building, you don't graffiti over it. And so they would hire professional people so that their building would have the type of graffiti that they wanted on it.
So as we look through these pictures of the city, see if you can find the graffiti. You'll see graffiti at different points along the way. We'll talk more about other crimes like graffiti and other things later. All right, tell us about what this picture's about, Matt.
So here's another outreach that the Michael Koch puts on. They have a game night. So this was the same night, yes, as we had the philosophy group. So you have a bunch of believers, you have a bunch of non-believers. You're able to get together in this little cafe, and you play games. They're usually 30-minute games. Everybody speaks English, which was really nice, so it was really easy to have conversations here. And then after your first game, you can move around to another table. You can get another game. It's definitely more, not like strategy, deep, in-depth games. They're more social games. So you're definitely getting to talk to people, getting to know people. It's a really great way to reach out to those college-age young adults.
And this coffee shop doubled as a church on Sundays. And so indirectly, they're getting their foot in the door of a church too, and slowly getting to know people. Again, the idea is a lot of people are apprehensive, especially young adults, of going to a church. And so this is getting them comfortable with Christians and getting them comfortable with being able to ask questions, realizing that Christians can be friendly people, et cetera. And so that's one of the other ministries. So then this would now be Friday morning. This is us eating breakfast. You can see it's beautiful. It rained a lot, so that could happen every day. So this is just showing you pictures of the city as we walked on that day. We went to see the Capitol, like where the president is, kind of like the White House area of their area. And so you can see here some older buildings, and next to, a little bit further down the road, with some more modern buildings. And so it's kind of a unique style that they have there. And then there's some barricades here. And so Matt, can you explain why there might have been barricades here?
So, what was it, maybe a week or so before we got there, they had just had elections in the country. And the right-wing side of the political spectrum had won. So there was a lot of people who were upset about that. You'll see in some other photos there are protests going on. Talking with Luis and some of the locals, it sort of starts out as a small little group of people. They'll play drums, they'll march around, and as they go through the city, more and more people join in, and sometimes it can get rowdy and get out of hand. We never saw like a big protest. This was about the biggest we saw, but we just kind of had to keep our head on a swivel and just be aware that there was these groups marching around the city. Oh, yes. Sorry, you can go back to that one. You can see the black sheets that are draped over the building. Those are to protect the building from any vandalism that might occur. Yeah, that's a better picture. So they have these big black drapes. It's kind of creepy almost, the way it looked. I know it, yeah, it shocked me when I first saw it, so I had to ask questions, and that's sort of what they were doing for that one.
And so this is like the presidential area, like the presidential palace area, and so they wanted to protect these buildings in particular, and that's why you saw some of these barricades and things like that, because they didn't want people going to certain places where there was like nice buildings and things like that, so they wouldn't get destroyed by potential protesters. And so this is a plaza that was right there that we took a picture as a team, and so I think there's like the Supreme Court kind of, and all these kind of important places there. And in this courtyard is also a church, one of the biggest churches in Bogota. And so this is the inside of the church. This is the outside. There was a bunch of other like indigenous people selling trinkets and things like that outside. And the outside's pretty beautiful. The inside's really beautiful. And so I wanted to have Heather take a moment and tell us who some of the people who are in this picture.
So we have obviously me, Matt, the tall guy next to Matt his name is Logan, and he was from a church down south in the U.S. and was coming over to Colombia for a 2-month stint, and his church has partnered with the church over there, and they send people for these 2-month stints to kind of just. It was similar to what we were doing, but getting their feet wet a little longer. And so he and then Caden in the tan with the sunglasses, they were from the same church. They were there for the 2 months, and they didn't know a lick of Spanish, about like Philip. And so they just kind of threw themselves in, had to navigate the bus system all by themselves. And so they were really nice guys, though, that were doing evangelism. They were specifically for college students. Is his name Pablo? Pablo is in the dark blue. He was the one whose brother is the Buddhist. And so he was a missionary, but he was from, it was a college program, but where was he from? Puerto Rico. So he did speak Spanish. And then we have, next to Caden in the white is Gabby. She was a student there who was rooming with the girl in the red, and she was going to be a journeyman. Is that correct, Carissa? So she was doing the 2-year stint of staying there. Right. And then in the white stripes was Presley, and she was applying to be a journeyman. And then there's Dora, who's the college student from UW-Platteville. So all of these people really focus on college students. And so the point of going with this group kind of around, seeing where they go, is just to kind of see how do they do evangelism. You know, they do a lot of just cold call type walk up to somebody. And so I believe that you'll talk about that next.
And they like will do other things besides just like cold call, go up to someone and start talking about the gospel. They'll also, especially Caden and Logan, they were famous for going and just becoming friends with people, playing a sport, and play sports with them, and then from there share the gospel with them. And so all different methods of trying to reach young adults in this area, because again, it's one of those demographics that are most unreached in Bogota. And so inside this church, I took this picture. And in this picture, you can see, and you have to zoom in. I don't know if I can. Can we zoom in on it? It's a picture of Mary and with Jesus lying on a table in front of her. And so Mary is sort of elevated over Jesus. And so I went outside of the church and I asked a man, I said, who's more important? Is Mary or Jesus more important to you guys? And he said they're both important. They're equally important. And so this is a problem we see in Bogota, is they've elevated Mary to the status of a God. She's equal with God, with Jesus. And so that's just helping understand what they do there. And so also when we went around, there's lots of stores like this. And in the store, there are lots of different statues of Mary and angels and baby Jesus and all sorts of different things. And so again, they elevate saints as well to like a status of a God. And so just helping you see what the life is like there. So after this is now Friday, we went and walked to our next location, and this is again just helping you see what a city would look like. Just the streets being narrow and things like that. And we were going to go up to Monte Serrat. You can see up on top there of that mountain is a church. And so, again, just another cool picture of what we're about to go do. And if you look closely, there's graffiti in different spots. And again, you're just seeing what the city looked like. And so here you can see a little bit more. I don't know if you can see it very well, but on the tree, there was graffiti. And we would love to have shown you a lot more pictures where we could see the more graffiti. We would like to have shown you more pictures of the poverty. But Heather, why? Why could we not show you that?
So the biggest crime in the city is phone stealing. And so they don't pickpocket really, they phone steal. So we were warned many times, do not take your phone out. If you take your phone out, you have to have 2 people watching at all times because people will drive by in a motorcycle, grab it out of your hand. All but 2 of the people on the ground there have had their phones stolen at least once. And so it's a very high crime. We were on the bus at one point during rush hour. We saw a lady on her phone sitting on one of the sides, and we had stopped. They have like a 10-second stop where the doors open. You have to rush out and get back in without missing the rest of your group. But a guy reached into the very small window, tried to grab her phone, but the bus started, and so he had to pull his hand back out. And so it was very prevalent. And so the areas that we were in that were quite rough, we could not take our phones out. So we don't have pictures to show the poverty there. There was a lot of poverty, but we didn't take our phones out then.
And so you're seeing sort of more of a sanitized version of Bogota. Just know that there was an underbelly, so to speak, of what you're seeing here. And so we then went to another spot where there's a bunch of university students. There's sort of this park area, and the goal was with these college students to try and strike up some conversations with some other random college students, Bogota ones, and try and share the gospel with them. And so Luis, our translator there in the black coat, we get there and he's looking around. He's like, I don't think there's a lot of people here. Maybe we should go somewhere else. And as he says that, immediately one of these college students, who's Pablo up there above Heather, he interrupts us and he says, hey, do you guys speak English? I'd like to practice my English. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And so we just start talking to him and just start asking questions about like, why are you here? Like, why are you guys wearing, let me see if I can show you. Why are you guys wearing this uniform? Are you guys a sports team? What is this? And they explained, no, this is our clothing for our university. And they were a technical university. And because they were a technical university, they were still in session during the summer, whereas most other universities had closed for the summer. So this was like what really a God-ordained thing, because what interesting happened is they would have been in school today, except for the fact that the professor canceled. And so they're like, well, let's go to Montserrat. Let's go up to the mountain. And they had come down from the mountain, and they were walking past, and we just happened to, God timing. And so we just had this really cool conversation with this large group of people. And so all of us were talking to all of them. And so I had a really good conversation with Pablo, in particular, the guy who's had his hand around my shoulder. Got to ask him really good questions, like, and some of his friends next to him. They say young adults don't go to church here. Why is that? They say, well, because we're too busy with work. And I got to ask questions like, what does success look like for you? And I got to ask him, if you were to die tonight, would you go to heaven or hell? What do you think? And he said, well, I think I'm going to go to heaven. I said, well, why would you go to heaven? And he said, well, because I do the prayers. I go to church on a regular basis. I was like, okay, cool. And then he asked me, are you going to go to heaven? What do you think? And I said, I know I'm going to heaven. And all of his friends were like, whoa, how do you know you're going to heaven? And I know because the Bible says I'm saved by grace, not by works. And I was able to quote Ephesians 2:6. It says, for it's by grace we've been saved through faith, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And so I said, that's why I'm here. I am here to share with you this good news, that you're not saved by works. And you don't have to go and make big money to become a success. You don't, and so we had a lot of conversation in that short period of time, World Cup, all sorts of stuff. And so that's just a little bit of the conversation we had. So you can pray for Pablo that the seed planted there would grow. And so there's a group of people. Some of the group exchanged phone numbers. And Friday, we're like, hey, let's meet up and go play soccer sometime. And so they were corresponding, saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's meet up again on Monday. Let's go bowling. We're like, okay, cool, let's do that. But sadly, they wanted us to pay for all the bowling and an infinite number of friends who they invited. And so we're like, yeah, we're going to pass, because I don't think you really want to, have spiritual conversations. You just want, the rich Americans to pay for things. And so sadly that didn't work out, but Lord willing, some seeds were still planted in that conversation. So then we just went by here this is a place, I just took a picture of this on Friday. This is the set of buildings, and if we go down, this is the spot where the philosophy group met. And so in there's a bunch of restaurants. This is where we were walking past, and people wanted to use the restroom, so people went in there, and the rest of us chilled outside. And then we went to lunch. And lunch, I asked Luis, our translator, I said, get us local, authentic Colombian food. So we went to this really nice restaurant. And Heather, I want you to tell us about eating in Colombia.
I'm probably not the right one now that you all know that I've had E. coli, but so this the food there was very mild, not spicy, very similar to American type food. So it was all really delicious things. None of it is processed, so it's all very fresh. And so it was going there was a lot easier to adjust than coming home, because then you're dealing with all the processed foods and things. And so a lot of the team said that when they come back to the States, they have a time where they're really sick because they're eating lots of processed foods, but there it was very healthy. I don't think any of us want to eat pineapple again here because it was just so good there. And so, but yeah, so it was very tolerable, so that was good for me, who doesn't like a lot of spice. But when they eat, they have like 3 to 4 hour long conversations. So eating is a very big thing there. So we joked that Tara, the treasurer here, was going to get all of the receipts. She's going to be like, what did you guys do except for eat? All you guys did was eat, because we just had receipt after receipt. But that was the way that they did ministry. The philosophy group, they all ate. They would meet up before Bible study and they would eat. And so their meals, I think this meal went probably 3 hours. But that's just what they do in their culture. Lunch is the biggest meal. They love to sit and talk. So.
And yeah, I think you covered it. Thank you, Heather. All right, and so this is just, again, just showing you that restaurant. It was just a beautiful place. And then this is us now, after lunch, going to Montserrat. We're going to go up that mountain and go to that church up on top. And this is me being dangerous. I took my phone out in the middle of the intersection and took this picture. And that motorcycle could have driven by and grabbed my phone out of my hand. Philip, you should not do that. But anyway, so I snapped a picture. And so this is us now going to go up on a gondola, up the mountain. This is them in the gondola looking out, in the gondola crammed full of people, in the gondola, and you can see the cool city. Now, this is up at the top of Montserrat, and another big Catholic church in Bogota. And lots of tourists like to go there because it's a beautiful place, right? You can see all the city. You can see just parts of the city. It's a giant city. The pictures we have shown you are just one small section of the city. And, of course, we only went to small sections of the city because certain sections we wouldn't want to go to because they were unsafe. They suggested we don't go to certain parts. And so originally when I was originally thinking about coming to Bogota, I was like, let's hike out into the random, let's just get a group of people, let's go hiking, and let's share about God out hiking. And no, because there's like cartel that will control certain roads out in that area. And there are certain neighborhoods where I was like, originally I was like, let's go watch the World Cup in a big park where the big screens are there, and there's a lot of cool things in the park. And they're like, yeah, you don't want to do that. I was like, oh, okay, because it's not safe for me, a white guy, to go there. And so so all to say is there's lots of people here, and we only got to see parts of them because of what we were doing. So this is, again, just more a picture of the what do you call that? Gondola, yeah. At Montserrat, in the back of the church, was this room. I don't know if any of you guys want to speak to this room. Do you remember what this room was about?
This is for the people. So from what I understood from the Catholic faith, if you didn't feel holy enough to sit in front to receive communion, you could come back here and receive communion behind the rest of the church, I believe. Is that correct? Yes.
And so it's a place where people who don't feel worthy can go and still be a part of the church. And so it was just an interesting room. And you still have Mary prominently up there. It's named after Montserrat, which is this statue of Mary holding baby Jesus is a replica of one in Spain. And you can see they hold Mary again to a high regard, almost godlike status. So that was named. This church was named after Montserrat, this figure, and but that was how it originally got its name. It became more famous because of this next picture, because of this Jesus statue you can see in the background there, and you can notice the kids on their knees. Heather, you saw this. You took this picture. Can you tell us about it?
I was looking this way, and I noticed all these boys just dropped on their knees, and they started walking on their knees down there. And I had asked why they did that, and it was like a sign of reverence. They didn't want to put their shoes. Now, the lady right next to him was standing, so I don't know if she just wasn't being reverent, but It's just a sign of reverence, and that's kind of how they bow. They walk the whole length on their knees.
What's also interesting is the statue of Jesus supposedly has miracles associated with it. But what's also interesting is a lot of the statues there, the crucifixes of Jesus, have Jesus with bloody knees. He has bloody arms and everything else still, bloody head from the crown of thorns, but bloody knees as well, to represent when he fell, supposedly, at different parts on carrying the cross to Golgotha. But they believe, certain people, a lot of Catholics, that if you climb Mount Aseret on your knees, you'll get a special, you name it. There's a bunch of different things. You get a miracle will happen. You'll get better, healing. All these different things they'll believe can happen. You'll get your sins. If you've done some sins, they'll get covered better by crawling up on your knees. And so a lot of that to point out is that they believe they must work to get salvation, and they must do these hard things to get salvation, and they don't believe they're worthy to get salvation. And they're right. We're not worthy, right? But we don't need to work to get salvation. Praise God. And so that's why we were there, is to share this message that you don't have to work to be saved. But again, you can see it's a beautiful place up on top there, and our team there. And to the side of the church is Homeless Jesus. I don't know what to say about that, but there's Homeless Jesus. There's a statue there. Also on the side is a bunch of stores, a bunch of, you can buy a bunch of Colombia things along the side of the church. Again, beautiful place, and it was fun to go see. Again, a lot of tourists come here to see all the things that are there. Yeah, so it helps us. It helped us see and understand the culture by going there, and it was a beautiful thing to see as well. So that night, we then went to the Brew, which is their Bible study. And so we got to, this is now Friday night, we're at their Bible study, and you can see that they're praying this picture. There's a bunch of college students, young adults there, and this is another part of their ministry, is studying the Bible together with young adults. And again, this is a big deal for them because, again, they don't get the opportunity to ask questions. That's not a thing you do in the Catholic Church much there. And so it's a big deal for them to be able to ask questions and to search God's Word together. It's not a common occurrence. So then the next morning, go ahead.
And this was led by the journeyman. Michael Koch was there, but the journeyman put this on. You do have a lot of believers, but there's also non-believers, I believe, in this group here. They do have a group that's solely believers, and it's more discipleship. But this one was just open for people to come, ask questions in a more safe space. Yes.
All in Spanish, so it was hard for us gringos to understand. I bet you these two understood more than me. So anyways, our next morning, this is just a picture from our next morning. But Heather, I want you to describe, what is this showing?
So each morning we would have devotional time together in the hotel room. I think this was the morning that Matt led it. So either Matt or Philip led it. And so it was just kind of a good way to meditate on a certain scripture, talk about what our day was going to entail, how we were all feeling, just checking in with each other. And so we did that almost every single morning, except for the morning that we went to church. So.
Yeah, good, thank you. Coffee's a thing there. Hot, cold, it's a thing. So Saturday, by the way, it was the day that Colombia played Portugal. And so they had a day off for us. So we had Luis come, and he's like, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, well, there's a gold museum. Let's go look at that. And so, cool, let's go to the gold museum. So we went to the gold museum, and you can see some really cool gold stuff. Very intricate, and what's crazy is there's a lot of gold there, and what's crazy is that you'd have thought the Spaniards would have taken all that gold with them, and there would be no gold left. But there's a lot of gold in this museum alone, and there's still a significant amount of minerals there that make it mineral-rich country. But what's interesting is we got to learn the culture, the indigenous culture of Bogota, and so this is showing the story of creation for the indigenous people. And they believe that there's two people, a man and wife, two original people, and they eventually became snakes. And then they went into the lake. There's probably more to the story, but that's what this said. And so it's very interesting that in their indigenous culture, there's two man and female, and there's a story about connection to a snake, right? Very similar sounding to Genesis. And so just interesting that even in their indigenous story, there's a man and a woman, original man and woman, and there's a snake in the story. So obviously there's a little change to that, but similar, interesting connection. And so then some other cool things we saw, or not cool, interesting things we saw. These are gold masks that go on people when they die, mostly wealthy, rich, noble people. And so all these masks were on some dead person at one time, and some more intricate than others. And what's interesting is they believe in reincarnation, but more reincarnation for the wealthy, noble people. And so these are urns where they would put their ashes. And not everyone got to be reincarnated, only the noble people would more get to do that. And they believe that they would reincarnate into different things like a jaguar. A jaguar has a lot of symbolic power. They would also believe they could reincarnate into bats. Bats was another big thing that once they reincarnate into bats, they'd get some secret knowledge. And they also believe they could reincarnate into, what's that word? Lizard, thank you, lizard. Lizards. And this one's also talking about how they participate in cannibalism during this time. And they also would do human sacrifices. And they would take people, they would attach them to a pole, and they would, living, and then they would poke them and make them bleed out to feed the gods or something like that. And they would do this around the nobles' homes. And so what you're seeing there are those instruments that were used for basically torturing, killing people. This is also showing an image of what they would use to, I don't understand how it works, but it's associated with cocaine. And so they would use cocaine, a primitive version of it, to go into the spirit world, and this is some part of that. And so that's all part of kind of their spiritual heritage. So the indigenous people, so it helps us understand. Going to the Gold Museum might be like, you just wasted time. No, I think it was actually very valuable for us to understand their culture. And so that's just a little bit about the museum itself. Outside, you can see there's a protest. There's barricades around the Gold Museum. And so there was a protest there, and again, we had to be careful that day where we went. Then we went out for lunch, authentic Colombian food again, long conversations, good conversations. And we're wearing our Colombia shirts, and Dora bought a Colombia shirt that day. We'll show you that in a moment. And then we went to a planetarium, went for another walk. And Heather, what was close by to this picture? What was we did not see this, but what was close by?
So the streets to get here were filled with a lot of vendor-type people who would just lay out a tarp. They would sell what you would consider not even Goodwill worthy, but they were reselling shoes that had been worn, things that they had probably found tossed aside as a way to make money. And so getting to this was probably one of the most rough areas. We definitely had to be a little bit more careful. But once we got there, then it was a really pretty area there. There was also a lot of homelessness there. And so the park that was nearby was filled with a lot of people sleeping just on the ground. A lot of police around, and they would have dogs that would have a mask on because it was just a regular thing that they were policing just because of the area. Yes, this was, I believe, 5 blocks away from Santa Fe, which is the area that you would not go to at all. We'll just say I was warned not to wear my wedding ring, and I said, well, nobody can pull it off. He said, our translator said, they won't pull it off, they'll cut your finger off. It's like, okay, so so we definitely wouldn't have gone to that area, but it was close enough for our liking.
And so again, you're seeing the sanitized version of things. So then that night, we celebrated the World Cup. We didn't go out in public, but we went in our hotel room and we watched the World Cup. And you can see Matt and I geeking out over.
This was, Dora and I were talking, and we looked over. I don't think you have the zoomed out version. But Matt was sitting with his feet up, just like a schoolgirl, and the two of them were just talking and whispering about the World Cup. So this was a very regular time when they would have together, that we would go to bed, Dora and I wouldn't even turn the TV on, and they would be watching the World Cup till midnight every night.
It's a slight exaggeration. By the way, Dora got into it as well. There's her Colombia, official Colombia soccer shirt. So yeah, the World Cup happened while we were there. Matt, can you please tell us about church there? So this is now, Saturday's over, now Sunday.
So church starts at 10, I believe, 10-ish. It's Hispanic culture, so you kind of just start when everybody gets there. This is he's not an actual pastor, I think, yet, but they're looking at that, and that's possibly one of their brothers that they're going to bring on as an associate pastor there. Yes, he is kind of like a Simeon. So, and he kind of went over the things that were going on, things that would be going on during the week, different announcements and that. And then after that, there was music time. Our translator, Luis, he kind of leads that. We sang songs that you would probably recognize just in Spanish, so some of the wording's a little different, but I think we were able to recognize the tune and sing along with some of the songs. After that, you have Pastor Rivera, who got up and he taught for at least 60 minutes, probably more. He had, so right where he's at, just above him there's actually a timer. I think it started at 40 minutes. I think we were 20 to 30 minutes past that. But he did a really good job. I think there was 3 different sections that he went through almost that whole chapter of Acts. And he tied it all together. It was really good. It was about, what was it? I can't remember what it was about now. It was all in Spanish as well, so we got bits and pieces of it. But from what I did understand, it was good. It made sense. I think we looked at the passage. We each got something a little bit different from it, but I think the biggest thing was unity in the church, and then looking to kind of extend that out, because they were looking at missionary work as well as and they're looking at a new church plant currently right now. And so that's kind of what this sermon was about.
They were going over Acts when they gave money to the poor church in Jerusalem, I believe, or I forget what it was, that was having a famine, and they were making sure they took care of the other church or churches in that area. But so yeah, this is Alvaro Rivera, the pastor there, and you forgot to mention that when they do songs, they do a song, and they stop and explain what the next song's going to be about. And then they do the song, and they stop and they explain what the next song's going to be about. And it's not just like a short explanation. They get like Bible verses out, and they like explain what the song's about, so you know what you're worshiping about. And so everything took a lot longer there at church. And then you forgot to mention.
So then they take communion every Sunday. They have these really neat crackers. They're little fish crackers. And then the juice, which obviously in Colombia they don't process it as we do here. So it's actually like real grape juice. You can see bits and pieces in there.
So all that takes time, but hopefully for them and for us it was a good time. After church, we then went and had dinner with them, and so I want you to tell me what are some things this church. Let me see if I get the name right. Iglesia Cristiano Verdad y Gracia. What are some of the things this church is doing?
So one of their big things right now that they were working on was getting the missionary family that are on the right. They were next to Dora there. They're trying to get them to a indigenous people that live way up north called the Wayu, or the Weju, I believe is how they say it. It's an unreached people. They do have a Bible in their language, but none of them actually know how to read. So it's actually very sad. So this family here has been praying about it, and now they're raising the money. They're starting to build a house, and as soon as that's built, they would be moving to that northern section, which is quite a few hours away, if I remember correct. It's a desert area, sort of to the north of Colombia, or of Bogota, where we were at. Then the other thing is they were looking for a church plant, or they were in the process of getting a church plant started in a neighborhood a little bit closer to some of their congregants, sort of like a Keeler church. So what we would think, Keeler would be fairly close for us. I guess it's kind of far from here, not really. But for them, from here to, let's say, the university here, would be a pretty far journey for a lot of people. It might take several bus rides, and it could take up to an hour just to get to the church. So a lot of times they go into an area and try to get a church closer to where those people are, so it's easier for them to attend the church. Again, a lot of them don't make a lot of money, so they're working 6-7 days a week. So if we could get the church closer to them, they're able to attend a little easier. And then the third thing was the possible associate pastor. He's a very smart person. He's got a PhD, and I don't remember. Do you remember what it was in? I don't remember. No, but he was a professor at one of the universities there, and because of so much of the liberalism and the wokeness, he decided it was either that or Christianity, and he gave up his job to come and work at the church. And he told Pastor Rivera he had about enough for a year to go without a job. And so the church is looking for a way to fund him coming on and being a full-time pastor for them.
So we share all this about the church because in this picture you can also see some of the other missionaries that were there. Will is the bald guy in the back. He's another person who's kind of in charge there, one of the long-term missionaries. And they wanted us to partner with this church in particular because it's a pretty healthy church, and they want other churches to reach young adults. And just as we want to be successful in our church plant with Keeler, if Keeler Church Plant fails, then we would probably be pretty discouraged to plant another church. And so just like they want people to reach young adults, and so this is one of the more healthier churches, so that they want to make sure that we get connected to a church that they think will for sure be successful with, so that they can then be a model for other churches in the area for how to reach young adults. And so they've got some really good things going on at this church. And so I wanted to share, okay, this is part of our food we ate. I want to share with you a video about their ministry real quick.
By the Lord's grace, we have had the privilege of knowing the Wayuu people and serving pastors in local churches in the upper and middle Guajira for the past 11 years. In recent years, we have developed a 3-year theological training program consisting of 9 modules, each with 3 subjects. Every module is taught intensively over the course of 1 week. By God's grace, we celebrated the first graduating class. We hope to graduate the group in Nazareth in the Upper Guajira. Beyond the training program, we seek to contribute to the development of communities where the pastors we train serve. We've promoted initiatives such as access to clean water and the construction of traditional stoves that do not harm people's health, among other efforts. Our goal is not only to improve living conditions, but also to strengthen children's education so they can have greater opportunities to serve their own communities. For this reason, our plan is to begin full-time missionary work in one of these communities, with missionaries who will live in the community, learn the language, and carry out various projects. This missionary effort will include mentoring and training pastors and supporting churches through revitalization processes like strengthening expository preaching, establishing biblical membership, and promoting an ecclesiology faithful to Scripture. We also plan to build a missionary base that will serve as home for the Suarez Neira family, candidates to be sent, and as a place to welcome missionary teams who want to join the work on short and long-term trips. Adjacent to this base, we will establish a community center, offering programs such as academic support, biblical teaching, and training in the use of digital tools and the internet for both children and adults. We will also support productive projects within the communities to help them become self-sustaining. Our long-term goal is that missionaries can be sent on cross-cultural missions to remote areas and other, more distant regions of the world. We give thanks to God for what He is doing among the Wayuu in the Colombian Guajira, and we pray that more brothers and churches will join this effort. May God be glorified, and may His gospel continue to advance to the ends of the earth.
So you can see that this is something that they've already gotten somewhat established by sending short-term trips there, but now they want to make it more of a long-term presence there in the northern part. And obviously you can see their vision for that Iglesia Cristiano Verdad y Gracia's the long-term vision is even bigger than just that northern region of of Colombia. And so anyways, that's just to help you see what that church is about. And hopefully we can partner with them long-term and help that church grow and be more productive for God's kingdom. Okay, so we're on Sunday. We're normally what would have happened on a vision trip is they said they only need 5 days. We're on the 5th day. What would have normally happened on a vision trip is they would have sent us home Sunday night. But during the World Cup, ticket prices got jacked up on the weekends. It was actually like, I forget how much more cheaper, but like thousands of dollars cheaper to stay in Colombia 2 days longer. So that's what we did. But normally we would have left on Sunday night. So here we are Sunday night. Now we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go to a mall. And found out the malls there, they are big deals. The malls, so it's just some of the outside of the mall, they are big, like Mall of America big. Like, this is not the biggest one, but it seemed like bigger than Mall of America. And they're like, oh no, that's not the biggest one. We got others. Like, what? Crazy. And so we went to another one another day. But yeah, so that was, yeah. Okay, Matt, this is now Monday morning. What are we doing Monday morning here?
So Monday morning, we decided we were going to try one of these parks out. I think it was the Simón Bolívar Park, about maybe 20 minutes from where we were staying. It's a very big park. It was massive. There was like a small pond, lake in the center you can see here. There's a lot of people just out there kicking the ball around. I believe Monday was a holiday. I don't know what holiday it was, but it was a holiday for the Colombian people. So there was a lot of people in this park. They kind of come in, they set up shop, and they stay there basically from morning till evening. And they just hang out. Lots of soccer, lots of people just walking around, biking, many different things. Phil, our leader here, decided we should take this opportunity to talk to people, and we came up with a survey. I don't remember all the questions on it, but some of it was related to the different ministries that Michael had going on. So we asked people, would you be willing to go to a philosophy class? Would you be willing to go to a Bible study? Do you attend church, or is there a reason you don't go to church? What were some of the... Yes. Would you be willing to go to a church if you were invited? Would you be willing to go to English club? English club, that was the other one. Yes, the English club one. Oh, yes, a conference as well, because a lot of the missionary groups that come down there, they're there for maybe a weekend or the 5 days, and they'll put on a conference, like a marriage conference or a parenting conference. So we asked them if they would be interested in that. And most of the people that we talked to were just nice. They just wanted to talk. I don't think anybody spoke English while we were here. We had to use the translator, Luis, to kind of get... This guy did speak English, yes. This guy was catching crawdads. They're an invasive species in this lake. He doesn't like killing them, but he catches them and takes them home. I think he had several, and this day he had already caught quite a few. We had a good conversation with him as well. I believe he knew about church, but he definitely was not attending church and definitely not a Christian. But again, we had a good conversation with him, and he was willing to talk to us. Seemed more so than maybe people here in America, but we had a good conversation. So,
So when we would ask these questions to these people, we would say, most of them said, by the way, they would like to be a part of an English group or a philosophy group, which gives us data that says, okay, maybe when we go, an English group or a philosophy group might be something we might want to do. At the same point, it was information for the local church there to know, like, hey, a lot of people are interested in that. When we asked people if you were invited to go to a church, would you want to go? Most people said no. And so again, you can see like the people did not want to go to a church, but they're okay with talking about religion and talking about these things. And so all the more important why you have these other layers to get people to the point where they'd be comfortable going to church. And so this was just good information for us, good information for the locals, and at the same point, it allowed us to then branch into other conversations. And also I made Matt go and start the conversation. I made Heather go start the conversation. I made Dora go start the conversation. And so it's a way to easily start conversations with strangers, is when you have a survey. And it allows you to then, when you're having simple questions about church, it makes it easier to be like, so why don't people go to church? And we found out, like, again, a lot of people are like, well, it's work. I would go to church, but I can't because it's work. And depends on who asks me and different things like that. And so anyways, it allowed us to have good conversations. I don't remember if we actually had any gospel conversations, but we had definitely a lot of spiritual conversations connected to this. Lord willing, we could do something like this again and hopefully lead it more towards gospel conversations.
we did get the phone number for that.
Yeah. So with at least two people, they were interested in certain things. We said, hey, we would love to get you connected. If you want to do a Bible study here, so we got one guy connected to Luis, and so they'll hopefully get connected to a Bible study. This guy said he was interested in a philosophy group, so maybe he'll get connected to a philosophy group. And so it was killing a lot of birds with one stone, going around doing this at this park. And then, of course, we had time, and so we went to a mall, and Dora went to an arcade. We were all there. We all participated in some form. And she got some tickets, and so she got a toy. We'll show you that in a second. But this is Matt. He's very excited about all this. He's like, I'm done. And so this is, again, one of those giant malls. We're at the end of our week, yeah. But there's Dora. She got her toy. It's a capybara. Yeah. At the mall, there was also a spot to watch the soccer game. So we all sat and watched a soccer game. Matt fell asleep. But yeah, the soccer was a big deal. Again, this is a giant mall. I mean, it's just crazy how big the malls are there. And this is the outside of the mall. And so anyway, so that was Monday. Tuesday, we woke up at like 2 a.m. and went to the airport. This is us in the airport after going through security. And you can see it's dark outside still. And so when we were flying home, the sun rose. And then, of course, we were tired. And we made it. So do you have any questions about any part of our trip? Any questions? Well, thank you for listening. I hope I didn't bore you too much. You can definitely ask questions later as well. No other final questions? Okay. Yeah. So your question is, on this vision trip, did you get a vision for how Rolling Hills can help them? Right? Right? And so that survey kind of gives you a hint as to how we can do it. Right? We asked them, would you go to a church? Would you go to a Bible study? Would you go to an English club? Would you go to a philosophy group? Would you go to a conference? We didn't ask this, but we could have asked this. Would you go to a game night? Right? And so these are all things that we could do. And that's what they are doing, right? And so we're probably not going to do all those things, but we can do some of those things. And really, what we do will determine on who goes. So let's say Matt goes again, well, and other people go. Well, they have certain spiritual strengths that are going to be better at some of those things than other things. And so that'll determine what we do. And so we now know the range of things we could do. And now it's really determining on who goes. We'll determine on which of those specific things are we going to try and do with the group of people we do have. And so now we know how they do it too. So we know how we can kind of come alongside.
For a while, until towards the end of the trip, I don't think any of us really could grasp. It seemed like we were kind of bouncing from here and then we were going here, and we couldn't understand how did it all fit together. Until towards the end, they kind of gave us a bigger picture. And so that church that we went to is kind of the connecting point with all of those. Even though Michael Cook doesn't attend that church, he works with the people who attend the church. That church is where a lot of the journeymen and the other college students go, because that's the way they're trying to build their college group. And so Will, who was the guy in the white shirt with the bald head, his vision, he's kind of overseeing the International Mission Board group on the ground. His vision is that he considers Rolling Hills experts in college ministry outreach. Not necessarily the young adult group, but the fact that we have a lot of college students that attend. And so his vision is that we can kind of fill the gap, use maybe some of the strengths of things that we have found in the States to kind of recreate it in Bogota. And so that's the hope, is that we will partner with them in the college ministry. Now, what that looks like, we don't necessarily know exactly yet, but that's kind of where their hope is, where Rolling Hills would fit in. So I don't know if that helps a little bit.
The culture of campus is interesting there. It's not the same. They don't have dorms. They don't. We asked them. They don't even have clubs. Very few clubs, and so having a guest speaker come in, I didn't hear of any such idea. I know Michael Cook is working to become like an instructor of like an English type of class, so he could be like a teacher in a sense in the university to build more connections. So your original question was, is there an opportunity to do on campus? It sounds like not really so much on campus as much as like adjacent to campus. Like one of the first pictures was the a courtyard area. Like there's a park in the middle of the campus. So you can go be by the park, but you don't necessarily get to go into the classrooms and things like that, into the buildings, because they're like behind a security fence. And so it's not really easy to get into it, but there's plenty of college students around it. And so you get to, yeah.
That is one thing that Michael Cook and his family do. They do evangelism, cold calls. They just walk up to people and start conversations. So we saw a little bit of how he does it, but because of the timing of our trip, we didn't see as much. So the thought is that if we were to want to minister more to college students, we would be needing to go at a time when college students are there, but also work out that college students here obviously couldn't necessarily miss a lot. So the thought is that the timing could be in August because they start their school earlier. It's before our college starts. And something Dora pointed out was that it's hard for college students to go in the summer anyway because they're trying to work. And so they're trying to get their funds for college. Easter and Christmas are times that are not good for them. It's a very similar culture there. And so it's looking like August is probably the best time frame because you would kind of get them when they're right starting school, maybe wanting to create new habits or something of that sort, but also not interfere with the college students here that they're starting.
And Heather just pointed out, it would be great to have college students go minister to college students there, but you don't have to be a college student to go and minister to young adults there. And so, yeah, again, it depends on who would go. Any other questions? All right. Well, you guys have been a good audience. Thank you. We'll formally end it, and then we'll have informal conversation. Thank you.